You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Welcome to Unbiased Science,
where we bring scientific method to the madness.
We're your hosts, Dr. Steier
and Dr. Sarah Scheinman.
And today, it is just the two of us, and we are going to talk all about alcohol. Side note, I really love our one-on-one episodes. I feel like
So do I. I was just going to say, like, I always love when, I love our guests. Don't get me wrong. They're fantastic. But I do kind of like our dynamic
totally.
Here.
There's some chemistry we love. We love. So the reason we're talking about alcohol, well, there are lots of reasons. So alcohol is pretty much everywhere. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about, prevalence of alcohol use, all the things. But it's also in the news a lot right now. There are some proposed policy changes, a couple of different ones, actually. So we thought, why not tackle this? And we have Dr. Scheinman here to really talk about alcohol's impacts on the body and more specifically on the brain. I'm going to be coming in with some stats, some public health perspective, a little policy. So this should be a fun episode. So, and I don't know, do we maybe just set the stage? Like, I'm just going to say at the top of the episode that I am someone who drinks socially. I'm not a big drinker. If I'm being candid, you'll probably be able to dig up some old college photos that would suggest otherwise. That was a different time
for all of us, though. Let's be honest.
Correct. But no, I will enjoy like a glass or two of wine. Red wine is typically my go-to. But anyway, so we'll get into that. And I don't know, Sarah, if you wanted to share a little bit about
I made sort of a personal health decision about 5 years ago to completely stop drinking altogether. So I refrain from alcohol for health reasons that we will discuss in this episode. However, just wanted to put this out there that the purpose of this episode is not to try and convince anyone not to drink. I understand why people do it. I used to do it a lot, like in college and in the years following college. It's just a personal decision for me, and it's what's best for my body and my psychology in general. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. And on Unbiased, I mean, if you follow our socials, you've seen we've done posts on this in the past, and I will often use alcohol to sort of contextualize risk for other things. And again, we're going to get into this. But for example, the people who scream from the rooftops that we shouldn't consume aspartame because it, quote unquote, causes cancer will then go ahead and have a martini,
Right.
And when you actually look at risks, and again, we'll get into this. The martini, the martini comes with far greater risks than the aspartame. And again, we've tackled aspartame ad nauseum. The TLDR is that, yes, in preclinical rat studies at levels that are so far higher than anything than humans ever could, consume. Yes, aspartame has been shown to lead to cancer in rats in those circumstances. Whereas alcohol, we have a whole lot more evidence. I feel like I'm, ruining the punchline here, but
yeah, I was going to say, like,
there's a lot more evidence.
Spoiler alerts.
Write it in, Jessica. All right. Let me set the stage with some stats.
Love it.
These are U.S. specific stats. I thought that for some reason, this statistic really caught my attention. So per capita consumption in 2021, the average American consumed 2.51 gallons of ethanol.
What?
Which is something about, right? Like I'm visualizing gallons, which is the alcohol in beer, wine, and spirits. This was about 3% increase from the year prior, 2020. There's a whole lot of literature out there, by the way, on the effects of the pandemic and social isolation on drinking. We're not really going to get into that here, but that did cause an interesting surge in alcohol consumption.
For obvious reasons.
Yes. In 2023, about 63 53% of people aged 12 and older in the U.S. reported drinking alcohol. So clearly more than half of people 12 and older in this country are drinking, at some point. In 2020, 24% of people 18 and older reported binge drinking in the past 30 days. In 2018, 5% of adults age 18 and older engaged in heavy drinking. Couple more stats. 10% of Americans age 12 and older had alcohol use disorder. This is diagnosable clinically. In terms of alcohol-related deaths, it's estimated that every single day, 385 Americans die from excessive alcohol use. And there are a host of alcohol-related health problems, which we'll get into. It's associated with an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, depression, stomach bleeding, and certain cancers.
Yet we're pushing to ban red dye number 3.
Oh, girl.
Sorry, I had to.
Well, there's something that called the risk perception gap, and you're getting at it so beautifully. And even the aspartame example is evidence of this. Like, we seem to focus or we're placing the wrong weight on, the risks of different things. And like, we're focusing on something like,
right. It's a cognitive bias.
It's a cognitive bias
that we've talked about in other episodes before, but it's called the availability heuristic.
Yes.
And it's just because we're seeing it in our headlines every single day. If we see it again and again and again. And it's just not as sexy to report on alcohol-related deaths, even though there are substantially more.
Exactly. So why are we talking about this? So U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy called for adding cancer warning labels to alcoholic beverages, similar to those on cigarette packages. So in a letter, he mapped out the key points for his case for this. So he was talking about the cancer impact first and foremost. He said that alcohol directly contributes to 100,000 cancer cases and 20,000 related deaths annually. It's linked to at least 7 types of cancer, including breast and colon cancer. Even moderate drinking, 1 drink per day, may increase cancer risks. And I should say maybe early on that the World Health Organization has come out and said there is no safe level of drinking. So even moderate drinking does carry risks. So right now, existing labels on alcohol only warn about pregnancy risks and operating machinery. Only Congress can mandate new warning labels. So yes, he's come out and said this, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It still has to go through, the whole policy process. Looking at the rest of the world, 47 other countries require warnings on alcohol beverages, though few mention cancer specifically. And many Americans are actually completely unaware of the alcohol cancer risk. So in some surveys that have been conducted, we found that less than half recognize it as a risk factor for cancer. Now, some specific risks that Dr. Murthy has cited: 1 drink per day increases breast cancer risk by 10%, mouth cancer risk by 40%. This is compared to non-drinkers. For women, lifetime breast cancer risk increases from about 11.3%, which is less than 1 drink per week, to 13.1% for 1 drink per day. For men, alcohol-related cancer risk rises from 10% when we're looking at less than 1 drink to over 11% when we look at 1 drink per day. And then, Sarah, I'm going to turn to you, for some of the scientific background, how it is that alcohol can, come to damage our DNA and then cause cancer. It can also increase inflammation, alter hormone levels, and makes it easier for carcinogens to be absorbed by the body. So, Sarah, how is alcohol absorbed by the body?
I'm so glad you asked. Can I ask a quick clarifying question about the potential warning labels, though?
Yeah.
So the ones that you see on cigarette packets are with the skull and crossbones. Would that be something that you would conceivably see on every bottle of alcohol in the store if this were to pass?
So there's a difference between text only and then graphic warning labels.
Okay.
Right. And so in the US,
I knew you would know about this.
Well, so I would imagine that the first step would probably be a text warning that just says, alcohol increases risk of cancer. down the road, it could come to pass that we have some more graphic ones that can actually illustrate, help people visualize what these cancers look like. Sometimes that will elicit a greater fear response or maybe more awareness. I mean,
what would it be a picture of? Apoptosis? That's not as sexy as the skull and crossbones, though.
Well, maybe someone on chemotherapy. I mean, I'm thinking of graphic warning labels that I've seen for cigarettes in other countries like Australia and other places where they have these graphic labels. They'll actually show, cancer lesions in a person's mouth.
Seriously?
There was one in Thailand that showed a dead body.
Oh my God.
In a coffin. So, I mean, there are different levels of graphicness.
I haven't done a lot of international travel, so I didn't know any of this.
This is we could have a whole episode on this. This is my whole jam. Like, there's a whole lot of psychology that goes into this. Sometimes if it's too graphic, it could actually have the opposite of desired effect.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, but I would think that we would probably start with a text warning. So, good question.
That makes sense. No, but I could totally see people. I mean, I just know like the way that we respond to images is like a lot more. It's more immediate than text. Like a lot of people, at least nowadays, will just like glaze over text with their eyes instead of
especially kids. I mean, again, there's a whole psychology to this. There's actually really biology in our brain and the way we process information, right? The graphic imagery is going to, it has a different effect on children, especially if they can't read. They really don't fully understand, these words. They don't think about long-term consequences, right? When you're young, you feel like you're totally invincible. So anyway, there's a whole lot we could talk about. But anyway,
right.
Yeah.
No, actually. So maybe now's a good time to take a step back and think about and talk a little bit about how alcohol is absorbed by our body.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So when we say alcohol, we're referring to ethyl alcohol or ethanol, which is just the active ingredient in alcohol. So when you take a drink, beer, wine, a shot, whatever you're having, it travels down your esophagus and into your stomach. And it gets about 20% of the alcohol gets absorbed through the mucosal lining of the stomach. But the majority of it actually travels further to the gut, the small intestine, and about 80% of it gets absorbed there. And it goes right into the bloodstream. So once alcohol is absorbed through the mucosal lining of the small intestine, it travels to the liver, which does the majority of the work to detoxify the body from that alcohol. So our liver is really the MVP when it comes to alcohol metabolism. Like, thank God we have livers if we're going to imbibe in alcohol at all. If you don't have a functioning liver, it would be really, really, really dangerous. So the liver contains, how it does this. So the liver contains enzymes that are called alcohol dehydrogenase, or ADH for short. And this enzyme breaks down alcohol into acetaldehyde, which is the most toxic substance that is an alcohol byproduct. And it's responsible for a lot of the unpleasant effects of drinking, this enzyme acetaldehyde. But don't worry, because your liver is prepared for that too, with another enzyme that quickly turns acetaldehyde into acetates, which is much less harmful of a compound. So then acetate is then further broken down into carbon dioxide and water, which your body can then get rid of through breathing, through urine, and through sweat. Incidentally, this is why people who have been drinking often reek of alcohol, because like some of this stuff is being like excreted through the skin and through the breath. So that's like kind of where the whole concept of a breathalyzer comes from. But here's the thing, your liver can only do so much. So even if you have a perfectly healthy liver, it can only process about one standard drink per hour. So what we're talking about when we say a standard drink is about one shot of liquor, one beer, or one glass of wine. So if you drink faster than that, or more than one standard drink per hour, then your liver, it really can't keep up. And the excess alcohol will stay in your bloodstream And this is going to lead to higher blood alcohol concentrations, or BAC, and of course, all of the familiar effects of being drunk or intoxicated.
Okay, we're going to get into BAC. This is actually a very interesting topic. It's all over the news. They're speaking of potential policy changes. There's been some proposals to change what's acceptable, the legal limit for driving. But
yeah, I was going to say that's usually where we hear it, right? Is BAC in the context of what is or is not a safe level to drive.
But before we get into that, it's so interesting how you're talking about how the liver metabolizes the alcohol. But P.S., when people say detoxify, like our liver is one of the organs that actually does detoxify our body. You don't need to drink detox teas for that.
Yes.
But anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, there's a reason why it's not recommended that we mix Tylenol with alcohol, and it's because both are metabolized by the liver, right? And I know there's some sort of it affects the enzymes. Long story short, it could be dangerous, right? You don't want to.
There are a lot of things that you really should not mix with alcohol,
right?
That could make it a very dangerous combination. It's because your liver is amazing. It is the second largest organ in the body by volume if you're counting the skin as an organ, which a lot of scientists and physicians will do.
Right.
So the skin, because it's everywhere, that's the largest organ in the body. But the liver is freaking huge.
Yep.
And because it does so much. It is your body's detoxifier.
Yep.
But it's not magic.
Right.
So it can only do so much. And when you're drinking, your body needs to get rid of this alcohol has been referred to as a toxin. So it needs to get that out of there and make it into, break it down into its safe component parts. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a full-time job. When you're drinking, your liver is sort of working on overdrive. So if you have anything else that is really metabolically intensive and taxing for your body to break down, if you're also drinking, your liver can't do everything at once.
Right. Wow, the liver's really the unsung hero of the body.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
But Sarah, such a good disclaimer. I mentioned Tylenol just because it's something that's available over the counter. It's something that many of us, perhaps take on a regular or somewhat regular basis. But 100%, there are so many dangerous interactions with drugs. Just thinking.
And a lot of pharmaceuticals, the labels on your prescription drugs will say, do not consume alcohol when taking this medication.
And please don't take that lightly. That's not, I don't know if anyone watches Arrested Development. That is not a winky-eyed suggestion. That is a very serious warning. I'm thinking about how,
Sorry, I love Arrested Development though.
We got to work in more Arrested quotes and references. But I take Xanax for acute anxiety attacks. That is a very big no-no, mixing Xanax with alcohol, for example. So many things. But all right, I know we have a lot of ground to cover.
We do.
Can I move on to some of the BAC deets?
Yes, let's do that.
So I don't know if you define BAC. I know you love a definition. Sarah already said BAC stands for blood alcohol concentration. It's a measure of the amount of alcohol in a person's bloodstream expressed as a percentage. And as Sarah indicated, it's determined by a variety of factors, such as the number of alcohol drinks consumed, the time elapsed since drinking, the individual's weight, and other factors. Now, most countries set their legal BAC limit for driving at 0.05% or lower. And interestingly, here in the US, we have a higher limit of 0.08, right? 0.08%, which is believed to contribute to the high number of drunk driving deaths. It's estimated at about 14,000 drunk driving deaths annually. Now, so there's been a lot of advocacy, a lot of, people basically saying we must, increase this limit. We have to have a higher limit. There have been studies that have tried to estimate what the impact of, tweaking that limit would be. And I just wanted to share a little bit of that. Studies show that driving ability is impaired at or even below 0.05 BAC. One study reported a 38% higher crash risk at 0.05% compared to sober drivers. So even at a lower than 0.08, we're talking 0.05, we're seeing some definite impacts. Now, the 0.08 limit in the U.S. was established in 2000 as a compromise. And a lot of experts at the time voiced concern that it was too high even then. There's obviously, there are certain lobbyist groups that have contributed to why that's the case. The hospitality industry in particular is seen as the main opponent to lowering the limit, fearing impact.
Why is that? Do you think it's because they're afraid that people won't come out and drink at their establishments if they can't drive afterwards?
Well, alcohol, if you, I don't know the exact details, but alcohol is marked up, right? The greatest margins are on alcohol. Right. So they think it's going to really impact alcohol sales, their profit margins, their business. So they really come out, swanging against any changes to this level. So interestingly, so there was this 2017 paper that tried to estimate what would happen in the U.S. if we lowered from 0.08 to 0.05. And they found that lowering the limit could potentially save nearly 1,800 lives per year. Now, certain states have tinkered with that limit. So Utah lowered its limit to 0.05 in 2018, and that resulted in a 20% drop in fatal car crashes the following year. Other states have considered similar legislation. There are certain national groups that certainly support the change. Now, what happened in Utah? That's sort of a great natural experiment. And data from Utah showed no negative effect on alcohol, restaurant, or tourism revenue after lowering the limit. By the way, we wrote a whole Substack article on this. We'll link to it in the show notes. Please go ahead and subscribe to just a shameless plug here. Subscribe to our Substack. It's theunbiasedscipod.substack.com. It allows us to do deep dives, long form content, and we get to link our, link to studies directly.
Yeah. We're here at Unbiased Science. We are not in the business of telling you what to do or what not to do, but strong suggestion. If you are going to imbibe and you are going somewhere, please call an Uber. Please have a designated driver. It's the smart thing to do.
Oh my gosh. It's such a simple thing that we've heard a million times, but yet how many people will get behind the wheel? Oh, I've only had a couple of beers. Like, that is a hard stop. Absolute no-go. Like, there is no drinking if you've consumed alcohol in our household. That is you leave your car, you park your car, and you get an Uber.
Right. Or a designated driver. Just something.
Now, I just want to say one thing before we get into another topic here. Like, there are people listening to this who drink like I drink socially. There's a reason we do that, right? Like, there are pleasurable, pleasant effects that many of us experience with alcohol. I'm someone who does have some social anxiety. I found that alcohol will sort of, make me feel more comfortable, more at ease.
Sure. So it's referred to often as a social lubricant.
Yes.
And it definitely brings people together. It's definitely. There are whole communities that are formed around drinking, right, and the sort of the ritual of consuming different types of alcohol.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. There are cultural, factors at play here too. So, and I'm not someone, I guess I'm just going to come out and say, like, I'm not someone who promotes abstinence necessarily. Like, I understand there are certain people who perhaps suffer from addiction disorder and can't really calibrate their alcohol intake level and things like that. So
and same with me too. Sobriety is what works for me, but it's definitely not for everyone. And I don't want any of what I'm saying today to make it seem as though I'm trying to push that on anyone.
That being said, there are risks, right? There are some real risks. And I do think that people downplay the risks. So let's talk a little bit more about alcohol as a carcinogen. There have been a lot of new studies that have come out to really support that alcohol is a very significant risk factor. So I will link to a post that we did recently. But again, alcohol has connections alcohol causes elevated risks of certain cancers, including head and neck cancer, breast cancer, stomach cancer, liver, and colorectal cancer. It is estimated that about 6% of global cancer deaths are attributed to alcohol consumption. And of course, that degree of risk can vary from person to person, depending on other risk factors, right? Beyond cancer, yes, we've talked about cancer, but there are a host of other health problems, including liver disease, high blood pressure, heart issues, and mental health disorders. Now, there is one thing we absolutely have to talk about. There was this time when, tell me, I'm sure you heard this, where it's like, oh, drinking a glass of red wine, every week is drink it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good for the heart, has the antioxidants.
Good for the heart.
That there are some sort of potential cardiovascular benefits. We're here to tell you, unfortunately, those studies have been debunked for the most part. There were some serious, sorry to tell you, but there were some serious methodological issues with those studies, and more recent, robust research indicates that any such potential benefits are far outweighed by alcohol's capacity to cause disease and harm.
There really have been no noted physiological benefits to alcohol consumption.
No. Now, Sarah, I think we need to take advantage of the fact that we are on right now with a neurobiologist. So can you talk to us about the ways that alcohol impacts the brain?
Yes. I mean, because we were talking all about why it's so dangerous to drink and drive. And the reason for that is because alcohol, when it's absorbed into the bloodstream, it can reach our brain in as little as 5 minutes following consumption. So alcohol has a half-life, just to give a little bit of context, alcohol has a half-life of about 5 hours, meaning that it can stay in our system for a really long time. And it affects a number of different organ systems. Like we've talked about the liver, the gastrointestinal tract, but it also, I would say it has the greatest impact on our brains. So ethanol is actually what's referred to as a psychoactive chemical, meaning that it alters mood, perception, cognition, behavior, and even consciousness in high enough doses. And the reason for this is that alcohol is what we refer to as a central nervous system depressant. So it just sort of like slows everything down. And it acts on two neurotransmitters. And again, neurotransmitters are just the little chemicals in our brain that the cells in our brain use to talk to one another. And there are two primary ones. There are GABA, which is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter, and then there's glutamate, which is the main excitatory neurotransmitter. So what alcohol does is it actually increases GABA activity, so that inhibitory activity, and it decreases glutamate activity, that excitatory activity. So what that sort of amounts to on a global level is an overall depression of brain activity. And this dysregulation of neurotransmitter levels can slow down brain activity, which in turn impairs synaptic transmission, or the way and the efficiency with which the brain cells talk to each other. And this leads to the cognitive and behavioral effects of alcohol consumption. So there's also just another component of this is there's also the role of dopamine. So dopamine is our, what's very simplistically referred to as like the happy neurotransmitter. And it is involved in reward and reward-seeking behaviors. And alcohol does stimulate the release of dopamine in the brain's reward centers. And this is what creates these feelings of euphoria and relaxation, increased confidence, lowering of inhibitions, which is, why people enjoy consuming alcohol. Like, this is why it's such a social lubricant. It can help people interact with one another. It lowers social anxiety for a lot of people, like Jess mentions, but it can also lead to an increase in risky behavior. And even at very low levels of alcohol consumption, even a single drink can lead to impaired decision-making. It can also affect different areas of the brain that are responsible for, regulating your sight, which can lead to kind of blurred vision. It also affects the cerebellum, which is the portion of our brain that regulates movement and balance. This is why a lot of people kind of stumble around when they're drunk or have been drinking. It can lead to slurred speech and also memory issues. It definitely has an effect on the memory, the part of the brain that regulates memory formation, which is referred to as the hippocampus. So a lot of things going on with alcohol in the brain, and just knowing that alcohol can affect underlying health conditions, and we talked about interactions with different medications. These there are a number of different factors that can also amplify alcohol's effects on the brain that we've talked about.
It can also lead to drunk texting.
Oh my God. Drunk calling of the exes. Yeah, all of it.
Sorry, I had to. All right, Sarah, question for you. So alcohol withdrawal, which of those things that you've described, is that dopamine? Like, what is going on that can cause something like alcohol withdrawal? What is it that's going on biologically that causes that?
Well, everyone's sort of when we're talking about withdrawal, we're talking, it's got some clinical connotations.
Yeah.
And the people that really experience the greatest level of withdrawal are the people that kind of drink the most, right? So people that struggle with alcohol use disorder and frequently engage in binge drinking behavior. These are the people that when alcohol is sort of removed from their system, they experience a severe drop in dopamine levels and are therefore in a dopamine deficient state. And this is what can lead to mood alterations, depression, anxiety, and then sort of looking for that next drink and seeking that out. Now, everyone sort of experiences like a sort of a smaller degree of withdrawal, which is known as a hangover. And that just basically is what's going on when your body is trying to like get rid of the alcohol. And the fun parts of the drunk experience are no longer being experienced by the brain, and instead your body's just kind of working overtime to get rid of that toxin. And frequently there's dehydration going on, and often insomnia, because you can't experience like very good sleep when there's alcohol, significant amounts of alcohol in your system. And this can be thought of as like a lower level of withdrawal. But really, when we're talking about withdrawal, we're talking about the people that have severe alcohol use.
Right. I mean,
behaviors.
Very glad you used the phrase. I mean, this is a clinical situation, right?
It is.
So alcohol withdrawal syndrome, AWS, as Sarah, as you just said, it's a set of symptoms that can occur occur following a reduction in alcohol use after a period of excessive use. So symptoms include, as you said, anxiety, shakiness, sweating, vomiting, fast heart rate, and a mild fever. Most more severe symptoms may include seizures and delirium tremens, which can be fatal in untreated patients. Symptoms can start at around 6 hours after the last drink. Now, this is not to be confused with a hangover, right? A hangover is caused by too much alcohol. Withdrawal is caused by a lack of alcohol. Hangover is obviously more short-term, temporary, and withdrawal is far more severe and more serious.
Definitely. And alcohol withdrawal, it's also important to mention that if you drink, kind of like Jess does, socially, not very regularly, not to excess, you are not at risk of alcohol withdrawal syndrome. That really is only for people that binge drink on a very regular basis and are very used to having extremely high levels of alcohol in their system for extended periods of time.
Sarah, I just realized, so we're recording this the first week in February. I'm sure folks have heard of dry January.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of that, Sarah?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So it's like right after New Year, the New Year begins. We all have our New Year's resolutions, and many people want to stop drinking. And then I feel like dry January stops, and
Is it wet? Is it wet February? Like, is that a thing?
February is real wet, I think, for a lot of people. And I don't know, like we covered a lot of ground here. This is such a complex issue. Like I feel like I'm a hypocrite sitting here and, you know, talking about all the risks. And then I am saying I am someone who drinks socially. I understand that there are those risks. I absolutely want to acknowledge that. And again, there are many folks, super smart scientists who have come out and said there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. Alcohol is a toxin. We should not be drinking alcohol. I guess I take more of a practical approach. Like people do drink, like we definitely should limit the amount of alcohol. This is not to say that there's a safe level of alcohol consumption, but I don't know. I just sort of, I think it would be absurd to think like everyone right now, let's stop drinking cold turkey.
Right. And that's not the purpose of this episode. This episode was not to kind of scare you into abstaining from alcohol and scare you into sobriety. That's not what this is. I am sober for personal reasons. It was the right decision for me. There were health reasons involved.
Right.
And it's just I just feel better abstaining from alcohol completely, but that's not the right decision for everyone.
But check those cognitive biases at the door if you're someone who fearmongers about aspartame or vaccines or red dye or pesticides or GMOs, but then goes and does a shot of whiskey. Like, come on now. Like, when we're looking at actual risk here, people, it is quite clear that alcohol poses a far greater risk. All right, Sarah, we covered a lot of ground here. Is there anything that you wanted to add or close out? I think we crushed it.
No, I think we covered it. I mean, just don't use a designated driver.
Yes.
Call Uber. Don't drink and drive.
Yes. Love that. Love that. Sarah, this was fun as always. I'm obsessed with recording with you solo. It's so fun.
It is.
I almost just said, I want to crack open a beer. But A, we just did an episode on alcohol, and B, it is 9:30 in the morning. For a variety of reasons, it's not a good idea.
Well, there are also non-alcoholic beers that they have. They actually have a lot of alcohol-free spirits nowadays which is fun for me because I can still make cocktails.
Okay, wait, real quick. Thank you for saying that. I knew there was something I wanted us to talk about that we didn't get to. Alcohol-free spirits. In fact, there are full-blown bars that are opening up that are alcohol-free where you could order really fun drinks, mixed drinks. Yeah. I think that's freaking awesome. And the other thing, I got totally checked last year. I did a post, I don't know, for folks who watch Parks and Rec. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking right now? There was a whole episode on fluoride and how, wait, seriously, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you watch Parks?
I can't help you. I've never seen Parks and Rec.
Dazzle. What? Dazzle. Okay, hold on. So let me just recap briefly. So there's this whole uproar in the community. Fluoride is toxic, blah, 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 blah. By the way, we have covered fluoride ad nauseum on Unbiased Science. So much misinformation, so many studies being taken out of context that are looking at levels that are far higher than what's regulated in our water supply. Anyway, I could go, we could talk about that. We've done an episode on fluoride. But anyway, what was the point? Oh, so people were freaking out. And so Leslie Knope, who is my personal icon hero, she said, okay, let's rebrand, or she and her team, sorry, that was terrible grammar. They did this whole episode. Well, let's rebrand. Basically, fluoride has bad PR. Let's call it T-Dazzle. And then everyone bought into it. So I say this because last year I did this post where I criticized, this is not sponsored in any way. There was have you ever heard of Liquid Death?
Yes, I have.
They're cans of water, and they're the marketing and the way that they're, branded.
They look like cans of beer.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, look, it's T-Dazzle. Now we're, remarketing water. And,
right.
But people checked me and they're like, well, actually, this is a lot of people who are sober or trying to get sober will drink Liquid Death in social situations because it looks like it's an alcoholic drink. It sort of makes them feel like they're fitting into that social setting.
Right.
And it's been a really effective tool. So shame on me. I mean, it didn't even cross my mind, but I think that that's actually really cool. And yeah, good on people if that helps.
Definitely. Like I like the spirit-free alcohols because I like to make fun cocktails, like, and they still are they're very tasty.
Yeah.
So
well, that I love. The one thing I personally can't really wrap my mind around is non-alcoholic beer. Like in terms of, I don't know, do people really love?
It tastes exactly the same,
right? But like, are people drinking beer for? I guess people do really enjoy the taste of beer. For me, it gives. I don't know.
Again, it has to do with it also has to do with like engaging in the ritual.
Yes.
Like if you're at a bar with people, I mean, there are certain brands of beer that like most bars will carry in major metropolitan areas. I mean, you could just get one of those, hold it in your hand, and it's like you're drinking a beer with your friends, even though it has no alcohol content in it.
I was trying to make a joke that like the taste of beer is. I'm not someone who genuinely enjoys the taste of beer if I'm drinking it.
Oh, I'm not either. But like there are people who do.
100%. No judgment. Gosh, I need to shut up. All right, Sarah, take us home.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you learned a thing or two. Please join us next week on your trusted source for no nonsense, just science.